One additional thing I almost forgot to put on was this nice heatsink. I'm a little concerned about our clearances inside, given the height, but these work wonders for keeping your motors cool. If you've got a cheap can in there that you don't care about, don't bother using it. But if you've got something more expensive that you want to last a little longer, these heat sinks go, they're $5. They do an amazing job. You do have to remove the sticker. Well, you don't have to, but you should remove the motor sticker, which that Holmes Hobby sticker is very nice looking, but I'd rather have a cooler motor personally. So this just clicks right on. I may come back through with some thermal paste from a PC and apply that afterwards, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to leave this in this orientation, and it's pretty easy to just pop right off. This is a 30-second install. Just clip it on and you're done. Maybe some thermal paste. So I wanted to highlight that before I move on. Cooler motor temps, longer motor life, all around good. Heat is the enemy of electronics. So we're moving on to drive shafts. Now this section you need to be very careful with how you lay things out. If you mix these up, you're going to get all screwed up and you're going to have to rip them apart. These are printed almost to scale. They're close enough, so make sure you are matching the right parts together. If you don't, you are going to be tearing these things apart when you swap some of the pieces. So I've laid them out very carefully. I'm going to start with the bottom one, and I believe we have to start pretty much right here. So this actually no, sorry, we have to start here. We have to assemble this half with the screw, because this screw basically holds the whole thing together, and then these free float in the middle as your suspension articulates. And there's going to be a need for thread locker here. We're going into metal. All of the really high stress points on this do appear to be metal, which is good to see. So we take and there's some grease involved here too, so I'm going to prep that before I get going. Get the grease opened up, get my sacrificial Allen key that I'm using as a toothpick because I'm too lazy to go upstairs. So we pop this guy in here, and then basically this piece, so we put this guy in here, it's slotted nice and easy. This piece goes through and a pin goes in, but we want to grease the inside of that a little bit. This is a metal-metal connection that's going to be subject to a lot of motion and movement, along with almost certainly some dirt. Slot that guy in. You don't need much grease for these pieces. Then we slot this piece over, which, if I am correct, the pin should go through the entire thing. I don't think I am correct, because those pins seem like they wouldn't fit through that hole unless they are different on each side. Let's see, can we fit this pin through that hole? You can. Yep, okay. So this is also another point we're going to grease. This is another metal-metal connection. It's definitely going to make our job of getting that pin in a little harder, but it is what it is. I was considering going with metal drive shafts, but this build is already expensive enough, and I figured I would give it a try with the stock drive shafts, at least until they broke. So, alright, that was surprisingly not that bad. And then you stick this cover over it. Now, this is going to be held in with the grub screw at the final step when we're putting that all together. So, now, actually I probably should have done this screw a little earlier, but we're here now. I'm not disassembling it. I can do it. I believe in myself. Only issue will be if that piece decides to start spinning. No, it can't. It's keyed. Right. Sorry if you can't see what's going on here. I'm just putting a screw in. It's metal with some Loctite. Real simple. This piece is still free floating though, so we don't want that to fall apart on us. That goes in there. That half's done. Now we're going to repeat 4 more times. I don't think you need to see all of that. If I run into anything, I'll come back, but I'm going to do this part off camera. So I've got these all assembled. The rear is definitely a bit longer. As you can see, you've got a gap even when you're pushed all the way in. So now we're going to put these in. Well, we're going to finish, we're going to attach these to our transmission at this point. So we've got our transmission. We're going to orient, as always, how the manual is showing me off to the side. So this really, okay, so it does look like it matters what the orientation is. One side is a little longer on both. So this one is saying this is part number 3 in the middle here, which is the front. So this is the front link. So we need to get these little half grub screws here, which are going into plastic. They're going all the way through. Yeah, so yeah, these are going into plastic. So we need to attach this little screw, which is a grub with a pin, through into our front drive shaft, which is much harder to turn now that the whole thing is assembled and the motor is giving resistance. Alright, so that's lined up. Alright, the longer half goes close. You do got to be careful because half this thing will fall apart on you if you're not. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to have to do this on the table and not right in front of the camera. I apologize. But basically you just slot it in, take your screw. This should drop most of the way in freely, like that. Nice and easy there. Then tighten her down. Again, you're cutting threads into nylon here, so no need to use any Loctite. There we go. That one's done. And actually, we're going to leave it flipped that way because it will be just as easy to do the rear. I'm going to pull that drive shaft around to where I can get to it. And this one appears to be the same way, longer side on the inner half. Make sure you've got these lined up with your hole or it's going to be way harder than it needs to be. Pop that right on there. It looks pretty lined up. I think this should pop right in. Yep, perfect. Nice and easy. Very well constructed kit, even with my option parts in the way, like this skid plate. And that is on. So we can turn the whole thing over now, making sure we don't have the whole thing fall apart on us. And we should now, if we grab one of these, yeah, everything is turning. That is excellent. That is what we want to see. Alright, so now we get to attach the motor transmission dig unit to the axle. You will notice that I have removed the skid plate. As soon as I read the first instruction on that page, I realized you cannot have that on, as there's some slots on the bottom you can't get to with that. So I'll go back in the video and put a big warning if you're using that skid plate to not put that on at that phase as text. So we will do that. Alright, so we're doing the front axle first. We need some thread locker, which we've got plenty of. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to start, we need to connect, I believe it's just the lower links at this point. Yes, we're just connecting the lower links, I believe. We'll see. Let's see. Let's do some test fitting here. It's not super clear. Now, if I recall, these two were supposed to sit pretty tight together. Let me look at something here. I think they're... okay, yep, so the rod ends are way underneath for those two. So that is these long rods. The stainless kit did come with these, which is great. So I'm going to start with these lower links because they look like the biggest pain. Basically you have to kind of walk these in. There's no way I can pick this up. You know what? I'm going to move the camera for this section because I'm going to be doing everything on the ground here. Alright, we are very low to the ground here so you can see what's going on. So basically we need to slot both of these into that gap right there. Well, everything else is kind of flopping around, and it's made more difficult by my shock choice with all of these extra hoses hanging around. This is going to be one of the most... you know what, actually, I was worried about that happening. This popped off. We're going to put this front drive shaft on first, then it can split in half all at once. And I won't have to worry about grease getting everywhere. So, we're going to put this on. Now we're going to spin that a little bit so it's easier to work on. And I need to spin this a little much. Sorry, I don't mean to be mumbling. Alright, I apologize for the camera shake. You're going to get moved around some for this section. Because this is a main section. Putting our grub screw in just like we did on the other half. Alright, I can get my bit out. Okay, so... you know what, let's do the upper links first instead of the lower links. I think that will be a little easier. We'll have less stuff flopping around. So this calls for a 14 mil, which are these guys right here. So, and this wants us going through the lowest most hole on both sides. If my tools could stop rolling away on me, that would be phenomenal. Lining, sorry about that. Did not intend for that. Also apologies if there's been some fan noise in the background. Been trying to keep the camera cool so it doesn't overheat on me. Alright, this is, there we go. Alright, so the trick there is to just go in from the top. And this is just nylon, so no need. So for dang, sorry, apologies. This first one should just slide right through like that. There we go. Alright, we're going to repeat on the other side. Good. Alright, so we've got the drive shaft in, we've got our upper links in. Now it's time for the lower links, and there goes the drive shaft again. We'll just get that out of the way for the moment. So there are little channels in the bottom of the tray. They're the, I think they're called boat sides. And you have to make sure the axle is angled correctly or they're not gonna reach. I think what I'm going to do is get one going, and then the next one. So once one is in, it should keep things lined up a little better. So like I'm sticking to the manual. It's hot in here. So I've got it caught right there on the ball end. If I could get my well, never mind. To back that back out. All right, we're gonna roll the whole unit over and see if this helps us. What a mess of suspension components. See, it's already kind of difficult to get that to slot in correctly, so I think at this phase, when you go to put these bottom links on, you need to have that lined up correctly. Alright, so you can see the slot. Oh, you can't see the slot. Let me move everything closer. You can see the slot right here that passes through. There we go. Alright, doing it upside down is the way to go. Pull that piece in. I think I have it. There we go. We are through. And just verify with the manual there should be a hard stop on the other side. So I'm going to basically just twist this until I get resistance, even though there's no head or anything. It should stop at some point. Hopefully. That or I'm not giving it quite enough pressure. We're gonna, yeah, there we go. I don't think I had started the threads yet. A little bit of pressure got them cutting into that nylon. And boy, if you strip the nylon on this piece, you're undoing a lot of work. So these are pretty delicate threads. Alright, that's as far as I'm willing to go. Alright, we've got the bottom links on. So I think while we're upside down, we're just going to do the rear. Also upside down, we'll start with the bottom links and see for science if you can do the whole thing, if doing it upside down is better. So I can already see we've got the drive shaft. I apologize, I need to move the camera again. Get that pesky shock out of there. I can already see the drive shaft holes lined up, so we're just going to start right there. Get that together. Okay, and we need our other long stainless screw, and I think probably doing this way is the way to go, because you don't, out of frame again, my apologies. Doing it this way is the way to go. It seems a hell of a lot easier to do these long curved links first. There it is, look at that. Yeah, upside down. So, pro tip, flip the rig over to put the long links in. Not try to, oh, you know what? Oh boy. I put that screw in upside down. Only something that can happen on those ones without heads. Now I have to try to shake the whole thing free, which is super not ideal. Great. It's not going well, people. No, we're almost there. Shaking was working. Alright, I think I can see enough of it to grab it with some pliers. Boy, trucks are certainly unruly things to handle when there's no frame and it's all suspension components, huh? Let's see if I can get just the... Nope, I need something even smaller. I am going to grab a set of tweezers. If you don't have a good set of tweezers, apologies for how close I am, get yourself a nice set of tweezers off Amazon. You will find infinite uses for them, like that. Yeah, so make sure when you put these screws in that you put the side with the Allen on the outside. Because otherwise, you will be there for days. Or you have to do what I just did. Lining everything back up and push it through. There we go. Everybody makes mistakes. No harm, no foul. Alright, give that some nice solid pressure. Get those threads cutting again. I don't think those are going to slip too much. So we're going to flip the whole rig back over again. Hey, look, our front drive shaft came out again. So if it came out, that means it's possible that it can go back in. So, yep, there we go. Just like that. All right. At this stage, I'm going to try to keep all the drive shafts lined up. I very sincerely apologize for my video quality going through my video performance going down here. It's very unruly to work with, and trying to have a single view that would be of any value to you, the viewer, is very difficult of this particular step. So again, actually I'm going to double check that we're going through the lower on the rear as well, which we are. And there we have our completed drivetrain, end to end. So we can test it out. Now, if any point of the system moves, assuming the dig is not on, everything should spin all the way out to the drive shafts at the ends. So, the drive shafts at the ends are the hardest to spin, so I'm going to give it a little spin there. Alright, something is binding. Interesting. Somewhere we are getting a bind. Okay, so now we've got the front and back spinning together. So the dig was the dig was locked out, but I'm still. So we are getting movement way out here. It's a hell of a reduction, but something is stopping me from getting full rotation. Oh. Okay, so very important, your grub screw on your front needs to be all the way in. This is why you check these things at every stage of the game. So that grub screw was sticking out about a centimeter? No, not even a millimeter. And as it was coming around, it was hitting the transfer case. No, we're still hitting something. Is it still that? Yeah, possibly. All right, so it looks like this grub screw on the back needs to be all the way in, even if it feels like it's a little too far to me. There we go. So do those checks. Make sure your screws are in far enough. I'm going to actually tighten down the opposite one a little bit too. Those go in further than you think. There we go. We've got movement at all four corners. Excellent. All right, I'm going to see what the next phase is and we'll carry on. Our next phase of the build is cage assembly and little scale detail parts like the gas tank here. Now, if you are happy with these colors, you can skip through to the next section. I am going to be painting these though. The black is nice, the red that comes with the four-wheel steer kit is nice, but I have a very specific aesthetic for all of my NHO RC vehicles. That is that nice metallic white with the black hood. So I'm going to be painting this cage white. I wish I could dye it. You can't dye from this kind of grayish black to white. This piece is outright black. The cage pieces are a little more gray, but you can't dye to white. So I'm gonna have to paint it. So the first phase of this is gonna be sanding. You may be able to use some self-etching primers. I'm not so sure about that. Painting nylon is something that I cannot find a lot of information on. I've done a lot of searching. I'm hoping that this section is going to be very useful for folks who also want to paint nylon like this. There's tons of information on how to paint, your standard Lexan. That, this is the driver's panel. We'll be doing that probably last. But there's almost nothing out there on how to paint nylon. It's all how to dye nylon. So I've done a lot of painting of various materials over the years. I have some experience as a hobby craft painter for wargaming miniatures, which you'll get to see me do some of that on this gas tank when we get there. But for now, I'm going to be sanding all of this. I'll probably set up a time lapse for that. It's going to be real boring. I've got some sandpaper here, 1000 grit I'm going to be using of just a very fine sandpaper. This is from my local hobby shop. I was too lazy to go to the Home Depot to get 1000 grit across the street, so I definitely overpaid for that. But yeah, so I'm just going to time lapse me sanding all of this stuff, and then we will move to painting. So enjoy the time lapse. Another additional note about the sanding process that I'm going to be doing here. So I am going to be sanding all of the cage. However, there's a few places I want to remain black. For example, the bottom of the boat side here, no reason for that to be white. It's a lot of primer I don't need to use, and it'll never be seen. Same with the inside of the front wheel wells. So this will be seen, but I think having some black contrast here will look quite good. But I want these rails to remain white. So during the time warp, you're going to see me do some masking. So for bigger things, I'm using your standard masking tape. You can get it at any hardware store. Works great, is cheap. For the more detailed things, and I think I'm going to have to use some of that around these pieces where I want this part to remain black, but this part to be white. I could probably use liquid mask. I'm not sure how well that would adhere to nylon, but I know tape will. So for tricky curvy bits like that, I'm going to be using, this is the Tamiya painting tape. You can get this, I think this is a 1 mil and a 2 millimeter, I believe. Might be a little wider than that, I'm not sure. But this is the Tamiya tapes. You can get this at your local hardware, your local hobby store or online. This stuff is super good because you can curve it around curved surfaces a lot better than a lot of the other stuff. So I'm going to get to work on this. I do actually want to change the color of the grill as well, so I'm going to pop these headlights out, which actually I guess I could do right now. I believe they'll just pop out if I give them a nice little push from the inside. Don't want to mar them. Yep, pops right out. Super easy. Put those aside. We obviously don't want those getting painted or scratched. Or I did just scratch the inside of that one. Those are going to have some little accent tape crosses on them, so that'll hide that scratch I just made. Other than that, I'm going to get sanding and painting. Alright, I have finished masking and sanding everything. So the masking on this is pretty straightforward. Not a lot of parts that needed masking, but everything needed sanding. I used a what grit did I use for sandpaper? A 600 grit sandpaper. 1000 was just too fine. Interestingly, this expensive, overpriced sandpaper is really nice. The back is plastic instead of paper, so it doesn't tear, like, at all, so you can just abuse it. I burned through the whole single sheet that little package had in me, there, but I think we've got enough sanding. So the painting, I'm probably not going to be talking through the painting a lot. I am going to record it. I'm going to time-lapse it for you. But I wanted to go over a few other things. Oh, I also need to sand the gas tank, which I'll do off camera. It's going to be more of what you just saw me do for however long that was. I'm going to be using on all of the nylons. This is a Tamiya, get that out of the way, a Tamiya primer for nylon and polypropylene. Now, I really hope this is what I want. It says usage uses undercoat on nylon, PP, ABS, FRP acrylic, PVA, PEC. Don't use on polyethylene, polystyrene. Or metal plated surfaces. So I'm just going to be using this on the frame. This is particularly hard to find. Most of the Tamiya primers you find are this one for plastic and metal. This you can find at pretty much any local hobby shop. This one I had to get from the Japanese version of Amazon, like amazon.jp. I'll put a link in here. I hope it works. All the reviews were in Japanese, so I can't read almost anything on here other than this one thing that says uses undercoat for nylon. So I'm going to be using this on all of the frame. I only have one can, but I think if I stagger my pieces I need to paint, this should be enough, given that it's just a roll cage and this. And the driver heads. I think I'll hit the driver heads. You know what? Those might not be. I'll probably leave those alone. I'm going to be hand painting these. We'll get to that later. So yes, I'm going to be using a Tamiya nylon primer for that. And then at that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the cage with the Tamiya TS line. So this is the TS. This is not the stuff you use on polycarbonate. Polycarbonate is the PS line. This is what you use on most standard RC bodies. It's what you would use on the normal body panels for the Capra or the driver's interior. This is TS. It's meant for hard plastics. You would usually use this on standard model kits. Now, these are all in matte white. So my aesthetic that I have is that I want metallic white. There is not a metallic white in the TS line, nor is there one that I'm particularly happy with in the PS line. So what I did for my PS line is I combined, I put this down first, this translucent silver, very finely, and I backed it with a PS white. The standard PS, I think it's 1, is white. Yeah, PS1 is white. So I'm going to be doing something here that I have seen nobody else do. So like I said, I'm going to first go down with the nylon primer. Then I'm going to go down with our matte white. So this has no gloss to it. Then I'm going to, and I hope this works, I'm going to test it on one of these very small pieces first, so I can abandon it if it doesn't work. I'm going to put a super fine coat of the PS translucent silver down on top of that, because we're painting nylon, we're not painting from the backside forward. So I'm going to put a very light coat of that on. And then I have a whole bunch of the TS13 high gloss clear coat for my top coat. So this will be our protectant. This will give it that high gloss shine. I'm going to go pretty heavy on this to help protect the paint job. Now, it's a roll cage. It's going to get scratched up. It's going to get dinged up. That's okay. That is what it is. This piece is going to be red. I don't have the red paint yet, so I'm just going to prime it for the moment. But, yeah, so that's my plan. It'll get dinged up. That's okay. I considered going from the nylon primer to a silver to a white. That way, if it got scratched, it would show silver first. But in the end, the silver would get scratched and it would be down to black. So I didn't want to do that. The next thing I want to talk about is the body panels. So I know normally your Capra body panels are a acrylic, or not acrylic, sorry, polycarbonate. I have this beautiful set of metal panels from Barn Dog Fab. These are an exact fit for the stock panels. They've been bent in all the ways you need the panels to be bent. And this is an extended panel, so it's not just the Capra panel which ends there, it goes further back on the cage. So you can see, sorry, I'll move these out of the way. You can see this is going to go onto there. And it's going to run all the way back past the shock mount. So I think that's going to look super good. So I'm going to be painting these as well while I'm out there. So I have to go out to my barn to do this. I'm not going to be spray painting in my garage, not enough ventilation. And I don't really care about anything in the barn. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to use the standard Tamiya primer, which is for plastic and metal. This is aluminum. Shouldn't be any problem at all. I don't see anything on here about what metals you can use it on. It just says metal, so this should be fine. I'm going to put this down, and then so I know the Tamiya color is for plastic generally. I'm going to try using this on the metal once this primer's down. Once this primer's down, this shouldn't care what it's on. If this doesn't work, luckily because these are metal, I can just dunk these whole things in paint stripper and try again. So I'm going to be doing that as well. So we're going to move out to my barn. What I'm going to do for all these panels and everything is I'm going to come up with some way to kind of hang them off of something. You know, put a little string through one of the screw holes and hang them off of something. That way I can spray them all, and the same with these. So I'm going to time-lapse that. The camera's probably going to be pretty far away. I don't want to smoke my lens with spray paint. So we're going to get painting. That should be pretty straightforward at this point. Hang them up, prime them. I'm hoping this nylon primer has the same dry times as the standard primer, which doesn't really say how long you should wait between coats, so I may give the primer a 24-hour dry before I go on to actually put the colors on. So in both the metal and the nylon primer. I would love to get it all done today, but if your primer is not dry when you put your top coat on, it just ruins the whole thing. Although I can strip this, I cannot strip the cage. If I ruin that cage, I need to buy a new one. So, alright, we're going to move out there and get painting. Hello everybody. I am here in my garage still. My workbench is over there. So I'm dealing with the oppressive New England humidity. It is every day pushing 80% humidity here in southern New Hampshire, and the Tamiya paints all call for a low humidity and ideally low temperature. In the next 4 or 5 days there are maybe 4 hours total that have a low enough humidity that I'd be able to do this outside or in my barn. So what I'm doing here is I've set up we have a dehumidifier over there in my garage. So I've got that thing kicking all day long, and I'm ready to give this a go. Now it is 80 degrees in my garage at the moment, which is why I'm sweating a little bit, but it's 50% humidity. I think that's about as good as I'm going to get. This garage isn't particularly well sealed, so I'm going to show you how I'm going to paint this, but given that I'm indoors with what is definitely not adequate ventilation, I'm not going to film the actual painting. It's just spray painting, because I don't want to get paint all over my lens and my camera. So I've constructed a little spray booth here. I'm going to turn you around. So I've constructed a spray booth out of a cardboard box. So what I've done here is I have taken some mechanics wire and put it through the top of the box to make hooks out of it. That way I can spray in here, and because it's a roll cage, right, it's got a lot of hollow, I'm going to have a lot of overspray. I'm actually going to be doing 2 at once, so I've got them in a line. So if I miss anything, it'll go onto the one in the back, especially given that I do not have a lot of this Tamiya nylon primer. I also think that's clear, so I'm going to have to prime that twice, I think. So the other thing when you're doing little parts like this is you need a way to dry them. So I've hung a long piece of mechanics wire off of the support for my garage door, and I've put mechanics wire through every single piece, including the main roll cages. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna probably start with a little piece for a test. Let's say like this guy. We're gonna hop him on there. We're gonna grab the matching little guy. We're gonna pop that one on there. They're, pretty much in a row. I'll be able to spray them both. I can spin them from the top by spinning the piece through the top of the cardboard, so I can get both sides. Once I'm done, I'm going to take them off, and I'm going to place them back on my wire for hanging. Now, you should, wear a respirator when you're doing this, do all of that stuff if you're concerned about that. The other thing, particularly if it's been a few days since you've masked your pieces, is you want to check right before you spray if any of your tape has come undone. You can see here, this one, some of the tape has peeled back a little bit, so you're going to want to go through any piece you've taped, particularly any very fine edges that you want, and you're going to want to push those back down right before you spray. With spray paint, it's your standard spray painting technique. 6 to 8 inches away is, I believe, what these particular cans call for. Start off the piece you're painting and spray past. So if the piece you're painting is the camera lens, I'm going to spray over here. I'm going to go psh, and I'm going to let go over here. And that way you don't get a big blob of paint right where you started and right where you finished. So I was planning on time-lapsing this, but I'm worried about overspray even with my big deep box that I've got here. So I'm going to prime these all, I'm going to paint them all, and I will show you the finished result. I've just finished utilizing I've just finished priming with both the nylon primer for the nylon parts and the standard primer for the 4 metal body panels. They came out very good. The nylon primer is indeed black, so I'm going to have to redo all of them with the gray primer to get that good base coat. But basically all it seemed to have done is kind of make everything a little more shiny. That may go away once it dulls up, but overall they came out good. The body panels came out excellent, particularly the outsides. So those came out very good. I opened the garage up and purged out all the smoke. That did jump the humidity in here back up to about 70% almost instantly. I had to seal that back up and get my dehumidifier going again. So, the gray primer says you can recoat or top coat in 2 hours. I'm kind of impatient, but it'll also be past midnight at that point, so I think I'm just going to let all these set overnight, let them cure real good. Then I'm going to prime all of the other parts tomorrow with the gray primer, and tomorrow I will put down the first layer of white on metal pieces. I'm going to check the dry times on the TS paint. I know the PS paint you can do recoats in like 20 minutes, which is great. You know what, we can check that right now. So on these TS paints, this is the TS matte white. It's a TS 27 that we're going to be using for the white body panels and the cage. This has a recoat time of, you know, it doesn't say. That's fun. Well, if it doesn't say, I generally go with 24 hours. So I will see you back here tomorrow as I continue to fight this humidity and high temps, but I think it's going to come out great. As long as this TS paint doesn't like crack off at the first impact and just sheet off entirely, I think it's going to come out really good. Alright, we've got our cage painted and ready to go. It came out very good, I think. It's got quite a bit of various layers on it. I do have some minor overspill, but really not too much of a problem. That's going to be hidden by the skid plate. I might go back and clean some of it up with a Q-tip after, but I am excited to start getting this cage together to see what it looks like built.